Okay, if you're a journalist who uses the tool Help a Reporter Out, or Harrow, listen up. Harrow is moving to Cision's new app, Connectively. But what is Connectively? Well, imagine a place where you can quickly connect with expert sources for your next story. Connectively is a new app from Cision that's changing the way journalists, like us, content creators, experts and PRs work together. So if you're in search of credible sources, Connectively is your next stop. With just a click, you can publish your queries. These go straight to a feed where experts from loads of different backgrounds can respond, giving you their expertise. So go on, visit connectively.us to sign up for free. That's connectively.us. Connectively.us.
Hello, and welcome back to Series 14 of Freelancing for Journalists.
In this series, our focus is celebrating and learning more about the winners of this year's Freelance Journalism Awards.
Yes, we're chatting with all our winners to find out more about their fantastic work and also how they juggle their freelance lives.
Yes, but before we get to this week's guest, as usual, we're going to chat about our win of the week. So, Emma, what's yours this week?
Well, my win is I've got a new laptop, which I've been talking about for absolutely ages and doing nothing about it. Because I use a desktop and a laptop for various different things. Obviously, if I'm out and about, if I'm teaching, I need the laptop. Can often be found in work on trains or just randomly at other places. I do use it a lot. But I also have a desktop. So I didn't really need to replace it, even though it was really slowing down and it kept glitching. It was kind of at the bottom of, I don't really want to spend money on this, but it is useful. And this week I just decided to go for it, to treat myself. I got a big discount. There was lots of offers on. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to do it. I use it all the time. I'm at work all the time. I deserve to have equipment that works. So I've just transferred everything over. And it's very pretty. So yes. That's quite exciting. And now my son can have the old laptop because he won't be doing anything on it other than kind of, I don't know, playing Roblox, which I'm sure it can cope with. So, yeah. How about you, Lily? What's yours?
Yeah, it's amazing how those things, isn't it? Just like the kit that you've got. I know when I got my new computer recently, it made, a huge difference because my old one kept crashing all the time. And I was the same. I'd had it for years and years and years. So I also need a new laptop, but that's a problem for another day.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I looked, it was 10 years old, and I thought, you know what? I think it served its purpose.
Yeah.
You've got 10 years of good freelancing out of that, so yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, mine, to be honest, I could probably get myself a new laptop now because I had completely out of the blue quite a big tax refund, which I'm still very surprised about. But I think I might have overpaid at some point. I think I got in a muddle one year and paid twice, or I don't know. Anyway, I got a big, nice lump sum that I wasn't expecting, which will probably just go straight into next year's tax bill. But it does mean I've got a bit more cash flow. So that was a nice surprise. Although I did have to phone my accountant and ask, like, what is this? Why have I got it? And I got one last year as well, but this one was like almost 3 times as big. And I don't know. I get very confused. But anyway.
Stop overpaying, Lily. It's madness.
I know. I think I'm too organised. That's my problem. I've been paying like ahead of my payment on account and they don't like you to do that. So they give you that money back. Anyway, so I have some extra money, which is nice.
Yeah, don't give them money until you absolutely have to. Come on.
No, I'm not now. I'm not. It's sitting in my savings account until January now. And I'm going to earn the interest, not the tax office. So, yes, lesson learned there. Right, it's time to introduce our guest. Today we have Bhavani Vadde, who won our Best Broadcast Journalist Award. Our judges described her work and interviews as compelling and said she was a force to be reckoned with.
Don't think I've ever been described like that before. Nice though.
Yeah, it's lovely to take it. Congratulations on the win, Bhavani. We have lots of questions about your work.
Oh, thank you.
The fantastic show reel you put together for your awards entry. But to start, can you tell us a bit about yourself, your career so far, and also sort of your route into journalism and then freelancing?
Yeah, so I mainly kind of freelanced in television and radio journalism, but I actually started as a local newspaper journalist. I did the NCTJ course at Harlow College, and trained as a local newspaper journalist and started at the Swindon Evening Advertiser. I just remember kind of finishing up that course and applying to literally every single local paper, in the country, possibly, hundreds of speculative letters, and ended up there. And it was brilliant. It was a really good training, learned how to write, report from court, shorthand, everything. It was really, really good. And at the same time as doing that job, I did do work experience at the local BBC radio station, and I was coming up to my kind of senior reporter exams, thinking, what's next after I do those exams. And I was shifting at news agencies and doing this work experience and thinking about what was next. And I just basically applied for entry-level broadcast roles at radio stations and regional TV. And I didn't actually get the job where I was doing the work experience. That went to a friend and a colleague, but I ended up at ITV Anglia in Norwich as a production journalist. So that's like the kind of starter job, and you learn how to produce correspondence and write scripts for the programme, and edit. So I did that for a while. And then I did a kind of loads of other roles at Anglia. I got my first on-screen experience there as a weather presenter. I learned how to use a camera and edit, and I became a video journalist in Cambridge and reported there. And then I applied for a job in London, and I got a video journalist role at ITV London at ITN. And that was brilliant because, ITN, that was where one of my news heroes, Trevor McDonald, worked. And just walking into that building, I just remember thinking, this is it. This is the dream. So that was really good, kind of reporting in London. I was basically filming and editing my own reports and delivering for like the lunchtime programme and the evening programme for that, which was a pretty hectic job. And that is when I was in that role as a VJ at ITV London that I went for my first kind of stint as a freelancer, because while I was on the job, I kind of hurt my back. It's quite a hectic job. You're kind of, rushing around with your camera kit and filming and producing reports. And I kind of really remember it distinctly. It was a really busy day. I think it was during Boris Johnson's first stint as mayor on St George's Day, and there were crews from around the world. It was mad, and I was kind of jostling for that. And at the end of the day, my back had just gone. So I was put onto kind of a producer role, which is good. I learned a lot, but it wasn't what I wanted to do long term. So I took the plunge and went freelance, and I kind of freelanced at lots of regional newsrooms doing presenting and reporting. And I also, did some kind of network presenting, reporting, producing, and it was really, really varied. And that basically saw me through until through my first pregnancy, and got lots of different types of experience that I probably wouldn't have got if I'd stayed in one newsroom. And then I got a short-term contract on Sunday Politics Southeast, BBC Sunday Politics Southeast, which is a regional political programme. And that was meant to be 3 months. I got the kind of contract when I was my kind of last trimester of my second child. And I was supposed to do it short term until I gave birth. But we got on really well as a team. And my boss kind of said, if you want to come back, I come back. And I went back as a job share. And I kind of stayed in that role for a fair few years. I was at that company for 5 years because it was an outsourced BBC programme. It was made by a production company that delivered for the BBC, and I did the role as a reporter, as a political journalist for them in a job share, initially for BBC South East and then for BBC London. And then that's when I had my second kind of stint as a freelancer, which I'm currently in, and they kind of needed a reporter less and less, and so I went freelance again. And now I kind of work for lots of different places. And the politics was good because it was kind of stable and part-time while the kids were young, and that was a lot of me generating my own stories on social issues and politics kind of outside Westminster. And now I'm kind of doing something completely different, which is a lot of kind of news-based reports and bit of podcasting. And that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, well, it shows you, doesn't it, though, if you do lots of different things, you kind of build up, don't you, a network of experience and contacts. Really interesting you started at the Swindon Advertiser, because my first job was the Wiltshire Gazette and Herald. Sister paper.
Yeah.
So I've been to the office in Swindon a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know that patch well. In fact, one of our mutual friends, Emma and I, she got the job at the Swindon Advertiser when I was at the Gazette and Herald. So I had many a night out in Swindon.
How do you? I wonder if it crossed over.
Yeah, possibly. And well, what I wanted to ask you there, because you sort of mentioned this, that you've kind of worked at different places, but now you know your CV, you've got a lot of big channels like BBC, 5 News, ITN, and also the Times. I mean, it's a really impressive CV. Can you sort of tell us how you built up those kind of networks, and also like how do you do that across so many different outlets?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started, I suppose I went down quite a traditional route of applying for jobs and kind of getting them and not getting them. Do you know what I mean? But in the process of doing that, you do actually make contact. So this kind of contract I got at BBC Sunday Politics, it was I actually went for a role at BBC South East, didn't get the job, but was taken on as a freelancer. And then when I suppose editors kind of talk to each other and say, "Oh, do you know any freelancers that might be able to fill this role?" I think my name might have been passed on. But then, I did interview it, and, you kind of, go through the process of being selected or whatever. So that's how that job came about. So that actually came about by not getting a staff contract or whatever, but you kind of, I suppose that proves you should go for something, even if you think that you're not fully kind of qualified for it, or you might not get it, because you actually make those links with editors if you get to interview stage, and you can show them what you do, and even though they might not select you for the job, you're kind of on their radar. So that was that. And then other stuff is speculative. I know this award is sponsored by Women in Journalism, but one of my mentors, Amanda Nunn, she was at Channel 5 for a long time, and she kind of basically encouraged me to do basically speculative emails and be persistent at places I wanted to work. And I did want to work at Channel 5. And so that came about through her encouragement. And I'd done that before, but perhaps I hadn't been as persistent as if I hadn't been so encouraged by my mentor, because emails just do get lost. So, some of it has been speculative, and sometimes that's fruitful, and sometimes you just get totally blanked. And then I think the Times one, again, it came about from I had, as I said, my boss from BBC South East. She went on to work at Times Radio and is and in the podcast team as well. And they were looking for presenters, and she suggested my name and asked if I was interested, and it went about like that. So I think it's just developing relationships, I suppose. And I think, I sometimes kick myself that I'm not very good at networking, in the sense that you go to an event, you kind of meet somebody and, you try and get some work out of them. That's never really happened for me. It's happened much more kind of organically with people that I've worked with, or perhaps, gone for an interview with. So that's, and actually another one was really, I got work through LinkedIn. I've never been very good at LinkedIn. I never thought that would be a good source for journalists, but just by being your own kind of a self-promoter, I suppose, the kind of the humble brag, I basically just got a bit more active on it. And it was when I kind of set up my own podcast. I just got I wasn't working much because it was a pandemic, and I have an autoimmune condition, so it was just trying to keep a professional presence up. And through doing that, I got approached by ITN Business on LinkedIn, and that's never happened to me before. But it's just all different ways of making those connections. But it's never happened. When you think of networking, it's never happened to me where I turn up at a networking event, kind of talk to an editor, and then suddenly I've got work. Do you know what I mean? That's never happened like that. It's just by continue to maintain relationships, I suppose, with people that you get on well with, and when things come up, they think of you.
Yeah, I mean, I found that as well. I think I did once get a job from being at a party, but a journalism thing. The rest of the time, it's just been about your name being passed on, when people have said, can you think of anyone else who would do this? And I've tried to do that with other people who've maintained connections with me, because I think if people are persistent and putting themselves forward, then it's really good to kind of share those contacts. I mean, one thing that, when we looked at your show reel, really stood out to us is you do a bit of everything, really, from reports that are leading news programs, serious political topics, to more light-hearted pieces, breaking news, in-studio presenters, like a bit of everything.
Yeah.
Is that something that you've purposely sought out, I suppose? And have you had to kind of develop the skills to be able to turn your hands to different things along the way?
Yeah, I think that's the one advantage of being freelance, is that you can do everything and pursue what you're particularly interested in. Like, I hadn't presented in the studio since before having kids. And I thought, right, this year I'd really like to return to that. And so then you kind of go and knock on the doors where that might happen. So, I have done a bit of that, and I'd like to do that a bit more. And I think I am a bit of a, and maybe this is a common thread with all freelancers, I think I am a bit of a commitment phobe when it comes to work, because I've got lots of different interests and I want to do lots of different things. So it really does enable me to do that. I think the one skills to do that, I suppose, is kind of being organised, I suppose, making sure that you are kind of on top of, which organisation might need you at a particular time. And also being flexible in terms of, like, you've got to be able to kind of change hats quite quickly. So, a lot of the skills are the same everywhere, kind of writing and interviewing, things like that. But there'll be different software for different organisations and different editing platforms, or even kind of different terminology in broadcast. Some people might call an interview clip sound on tape a SOT. Other people might call it a clip. Do you know what I mean? So it's just getting your head around those differences when you're in different places. But I suppose, that kind of flexibility. But beyond that, I think it's probably quite similar to working freelance in any other kind of journalism field. It's kind of, you've got to keep yourself organised and keep pitching and keep putting yourself forward. And I suppose the difference between broadcast and a newspaper is I don't do much pitching anymore. And even when I did do pitching, it was always internally, when I was kind of like staff or reporter. So I'd pitch my ideas to my editor and they'd say yeah or no. So I don't really do that anymore. I don't really do a lot of kind of story generation. I think that is something I'd kind of like to focus on going forward, because although I have the kind of diversity in terms of type of journalism I do, it's not really, I don't really have that much control on kind of the stories that I'm doing at the moment. And when I was doing the politics role, I was doing a lot of kind of social affairs, and that kind of really interests me, which I do miss. But saying that, it's not like it's not possible. It's just that you don't get paid for when you sit down and do the story development and develop the pitch until you're actually doing the film. So I have done it a couple of times where I think during one of the general election campaigns, I realised that the kind of ruling Hindu nationalist party, the BJP, their kind of volunteers were canvassing in certain London constituencies, which I found quite interesting, that a foreign kind of national party was kind of taking an interest in the UK election. I also thought it was interesting that, you kind of think traditionally most ethnic minority communities might vote Labour, where actually there was a real kind of push from the Tories to kind of gain these votes. So I pitched that, and that was quite hard to kind of get over the line. It did go out on a few kind of BBC outlets, or fair few outlets, but I didn't get paid for, doing all the research beforehand, setting up all the filming. I got paid a day rate for the day that I actually did do the filming. So I've done it a couple of times, but financially it's not always that conducive when you've got kind of bills to pay, and you do need to make money from the time you put in. So that is the element that I miss. So I've got off on one. You asked about skills, but those are the skills I'm not using.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask about that in terms of how you get the work, because is it shifts that you're doing? Is that how it works, on a day rate rather than I'd like to do a package about X?
Yeah. I mean, I think there used to be a few more budgets for that, like when you could go and pitch and say, right, I've got this idea, I'd like to do this. But now, if I have ever done that it seems I have to kind of try and coincide it with a day that I've already been booked. Do you know what I mean? It's very kind of, I don't really get that where they kind of book you because I've got a story idea, because the budgets aren't there. But sometimes it all kind of comes together and you've got a story and it kind of works out for the days you've been booked. So that happens. But yes, it is mainly shift work. So you kind of basically get booked for certain days. You do the hours, and you can bring your own stories to that day. But they tend to be kind of on the day stories that you've spotted, or rather than something you might have developed, like an investigation or something like that. And that's how it happens.
Yeah. But then more recently, you've moved into podcasting.
Yeah.
So tell us about what you've been doing on the podcasting side.
Yeah. So I've got this kind of autoimmune condition. I'm not sure. I think it's quite rare. Not many people seem to have heard of it. It's called vasculitis, leukocytoplastic vasculitis. So I had to basically kind of semi-shield during COVID, and I was really kind of advised against doing the out and about reporting and travelling and stuff like that, because I was kind of a bit more vulnerable. And so a lot of my work fell away. It's not the kind of work that you can do from home. And I suppose I didn't really, I suppose I could have gone down the line of trying to pitch into newspapers and things like that. But with kids, homeschool and everything like that, it was just quite a lot to be developing a new line. So I just kind of thought, right, again, it was through my mentor. She suggested trying to do a podcast, and this was the time to do it. And I did a podcast called the Brilliant Resilient Club, and it was basically about people who might have faced some big kind of life challenge, kind of bereavement or disability, something like that. And, maybe drawing on my own kind of resilience, I suppose, to try and handle this situation where I couldn't work, I was stuck at home, and I was basically trying to do something. So I basically launched this podcast, Brilliant Resilient Club. I did it from home, taught myself how to do it from scratch, doing all the interviewing and setting up the interviews and the editing and the marketing of it. I did it for a season. And again, I didn't really make any money from it, but it was to kind of keep up my skills and to be doing something professional while I was at home and not able to work. I'm into some fabulous people. It was good, and I learned a lot. And then as a result of that, again, because I'd put it on LinkedIn and people knew I was doing it, the work came in from ITN Business. They knew that I had kind of recording equipment at home, so I could record voiceovers at home. And my colleague, Kate Ford, who I worked with, she put my name forward for an actual paid presenting job at the Times for the World in 10 podcast, which I've been doing for the last year or so. So that kind of happened in that respect. And I keep thinking to resurrect that podcast and do another season. So again, that's on my to-do list. Lots to do, but it was good fun. But it was a passion project rather than a money-making one, but it led to other work.
Yeah, it just goes to show, doesn't it, that it is worthwhile doing these things and learning all those skills yourself and putting it out there, because it can lead to paid work. And I suppose that kind of leads me nicely into the next question, which is, what advice would you give someone wanting to break into the world of freelance broadcast journalism at the moment? Is it, things like that, do your own, produce your own content, get it out into the world, get as much work experience as possible, get a mentor. You know, what else can people do?
Absolutely. I think the shame is that there are far fewer people entering broadcast journalism the route I took, which was from, newspapers, having done some journalism, then kind of entering radio or TV. A lot of people are doing the masters at City or Cardiff or Sheffield, and that's great because you kind of learn all the technical skills and things like that. But they are expensive, and you kind of are then competing with a lot of people from fairly similar backgrounds. So absolutely build up your portfolio as much as you can while you are still studying. And sadly, it's still work experience where you have to offer your work, your time for free to get that experience, which obviously kind of really limits certain people from certain backgrounds and kind of lower income backgrounds, which is a real shame. And that's why I'm pleased I came from newspaper. A lot of my contemporaries came up from newspaper because you could earn while you were getting your portfolio up and your experience up. And then, once you have got a body of work or you're ready to kind of enter that market, then there are more apprenticeship schemes now than there were when I started off. So there's a kind of journalism apprenticeship scheme at the BBC and News UK and other organisations. So again, you could go that route without having to go to university. And it's about persistence. It is about those speculative emails and not taking no for an answer, and attending networking events and going along to things like Women in Journalism, or attending, talks and trying to meet people. And I think it's similar across other areas of broadcast or other areas of journalism. It's not specific to broadcast, but it's making those connections and then figuring out what the entry roles are in different organisations. Again, they're called different things in different organisations. The BBC is, you'd be a producer or a production journalist in ITV, or a news editor, which sounds quite grand, but it's actually an assistant news editor, which sounds quite grand, but actually that's kind of at the entry level at ITN. And try and go for those roles and work your way up, and all constantly come up with ideas, keep pitching internally once you're there. And I suppose, pitch externally as well. It might not actually come to something that you produce as a piece of journalism, but it shows editors and senior journalists that you've got ideas. And I think that's what people want.
I do some news shifts, and quite often I'll be coming with a load of ideas for that day. And then some of those won't be used, but they'll commission features on other things. Like, it's always just good, isn't it, to show willing, and to show that you've got ideas, and to show that, you're kind of making yourself part of that team, I think. And it also means that you can then hopefully work on the ideas that you're most interested in.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you've talked about why you freelance and what you enjoy about freelancing. But we do like to be realistic. So without being too depressing, what's kind of the most... What's the most challenging thing, I suppose, about that you found about working for yourself?
Well, I suppose you don't have those kind of annual, what do you call them, those appraisals or whatever. Someone tell you, oh, you're doing really well at this, and like, you need to improve on this. So it's like, I've only recently got better at setting myself goals and then actually going for it. Do you know what I mean? So kind of, you can drift, I suppose. That is challenging. I think journalists, I think, we're naturally kind of sociable people. We're interested in other people. So it can be quite lonely. You're not really part of a team. You're kind of working on your own. And although, I do go into teams and I have, friends and good relationships with colleagues, you really are not really part of the team. Do you know what I mean? You're a freelancer that comes and goes. There's no obligation to you. So I find that difficult, being organised with invoicing. I'm terrible with my finances. That's not good. But I think it is that kind of sometimes, you're kind of a little bit on your own. So that can be a bit challenging to kind of try and remember why I've opted to do this, because it's an amazing amount of flexibility. As I said, I've got 2 young children and a health problem. It means I can manage my workload and do interesting and challenging work, as well as, basically balance these other kind of competing concerns. But I do think, sometimes I think, it'd be nice, if you kind of had a regular team. And also, I don't do longer term things. So it's very short term at the moment. Like, I'm not doing longer term projects or longer term investigations. So there are lots of benefits to that, because you put the work to bed. You don't have to worry about it. There's no kind of sleepless nights thinking about, whether it's an interview is going to pull out or something like that. But I think those are my biggest challenges. Just kind of basically being on, can be a bit lonely, and doing less of the original journalism.
So how does it work, like, on a day-to-day basis? Are you booked in, like, for a day or a week? And then how do you decide, like, how far in advance you plan that, and how many days a week you're going to do? See, I can't imagine that, because I do shifts, but not very often. So how does that all work?
It really does vary. Sometimes it can be, especially, there's a lot of demand in school holidays, which is, again, hard because I've got children, but you could be booked up for the entire half term if I wanted to be. But with Times Radio, I would just give them my best days to be booked, so I'd get kind of regular days for that, and then fit the other stuff around. But it's not kind of consistent. Like, some weeks you can have, all 5 days booked up, and some days it's like nothing. Some weeks it's nothing. But I try, again, because of my health and everything like that, I try not to do more than 3 or 4 shifts over 7 days. And that's enough for me. But I know freelancers who could do 10, 15 days in a row, especially when you've got a broad range of clients. So it's just juggling, really. It's just juggling. Like, I perhaps pace myself a bit more than other people who haven't got my particular issues, but it's just, you ring up, someone emails you or texts you saying, are you available this day? Yes or no. Sometimes the diary looks a little bit empty, and then you start to have a bit of a panic, and then you just kind of email the people who book you and say, really keen, I've got a completely empty month or something like that. And then, stuff will come up. Sometimes it's a month, 2 months in advance. Sometimes, like, I've got an email today saying, are you available tomorrow? I'm not, or I'm already booked, but it can be that last minute. Sometimes it can be on the day.
I've done that before with kind of people that you work for quite regularly. If a month or a summer period is coming up that looks quite empty, just saying, I'm just sorting out my diary and I just need to know if you need me. Like, I'm making it out like a moment. Probably shouldn't be saying this on a podcast. And it does work because it just reminds people. Yeah. Because quite often when people are booking you in or thinking about features that they want to commission someone to do, it's just the person that's the top of their mind at that point in time. Yeah. They're not necessarily being fair about how they're spreading it out. No, it's just what's the name that popped into their head.
And also, if you are annoying and persistent, and you send 3 emails saying, "Oh, I'm really keen, I haven't been with you for a while," then so they do take
it. Does work. Be persistent, everyone. That's the key message. Takeaway message from today.
It really is.
To round up, Bhavani, we're asking all our awards winners the same question. What is your bucket list freelance opportunity? So this might be like someone you've not worked for yet, or a particular story you'd like to cover, someone you want to interview. It could be anything. Yeah. But is there something kind of on that bucket list that you've not yet done?
That's really hard, because I feel like I lurch from one opportunity to another, not really beyond getting that job at ITN. I didn't really have any goals. Do you know what I mean? Because I thought that would be the dream job. It was the dream job. But I think Channel 4, I've never worked for Channel 4, and I just think they do amazing stuff. So I think that would be an ultimate bucket list. I better start taking some steps to try and head in that direction. I'd like to do some more presenting, and perhaps make the jump to network presenting, because I have done some network presenting, but more of that. Never thought I'd get that far, so that would be really great. And the other thing that I've never done, and I'm not quite sure how to get into, but having listened to your podcasts with other people who've done long form, I think I've got a better idea. I've never done documentaries or a kind of longer form programs, so I tend to kind of do news reports or half-hour podcasts. So I think that would be something interesting to explore down the line.
Yeah, definitely. Great things to have on your list. And you mentioned earlier about like not having an appraisal because you haven't got an employer. I'll put some resources in the show notes, but we have actually done a couple of podcast episodes where Emma and I have done an appraisal on one another, and we had it recently in our newsletter as well. So if you can buddy up with another freelance journalist, you can do an appraisal with each other.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, but there's some really good things there that you'd kind of work towards. But it's like you're busy, so it's always about finding the time, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it is. And also, I want to say thanks. I mean, it's just brilliant that you set up these awards, because I think that kind of feeds into that lack of appraisal. It's kind of lack of appreciation as well. You kind of plug away as freelancers, and you often do deliver really good stories or things that are great for news organisations, and you get paid, and someone says thanks at the end of the day. But then there's kind of no kind of global recognition. So it's really great. Thank you very much, and I'm really happy to have won this award.
Oh, fantastic. That's what a nice way to finish. And yeah, we feel exactly the same. We go underappreciated. Anything we can do to put us on a bit of a pedestal is fine by us. Okay, it's time to bring this episode to a close. Thank you so much for coming to speak to us, Bhavani, and congratulations again on your well-deserved win.
Yeah, it's been a really great way to wrap up the series. People can find all our resources at freelancingforjournalists.com, and you can also come and find us on Facebook at our Freelancing for Journalists group.
Yeah, so just a little note to say thanks to our producer, Maddie Jory. A huge thank you to all our Freelance Journalism Awards sponsors, which means that we could actually do this, which were not just Women in Journalism, but also Exiles, NUJ Freelance Branch, Sabanta, Paydesk, Birmingham City University, and News Associates. And that wraps up this series, but we will be back with another at the end of the year. So bye for now.
Goodbye.